UW360 is proudly supported by BECU, a not-for-profit member-owned credit union. Pacific Office Automation, copy, print, workflow, and IT. Problem solved.
Hi everyone, I'm Carolyn Douglas. Welcome to a new season of UW360. In today's show, we're looking at the unusual way some Huskies spend their vacations. We'll follow a UW team traveling the world to save women's lives. We'll show you how a professor is using his high-tech skills to help a Buddhist monastery. We'll talk with students who spent their summer researching honeybees. And check out some exciting solar energy research that's happening year-round. First, though, we head south to UW Tacoma, where summer camp opens up a whole new world of science and engineering for teens.
For some teenagers, summer means a vacation from learning. For others, it means building robots, analyzing DNA, and policing water pollution.
The UW Tacoma Institute of Technology has the Math Science Leadership Program, which hosts diverse youth entering 7th through 12th grade.
And then do you understand why we use the 1 and the -1? Because that part can be kind of confusing sometimes.
We bring students onto campus for pretty intense 3-week project-based learning to get them to do different types of science and engineering projects.
Now these are always pushed in.
The plan is to encourage students who might not otherwise consider science and engineering careers.
You won't wait for light to be right here?
Yeah, that will work.
It's a dynamic mix of work and play.
Our goal for our robot is for this to find the green dot. It's like a blackboard with different colored dots. And we have to use this program and find color values using the light continuum, whereas like all the colors are different numbers.
Campers do cool projects, make friends, and build leadership skills that they can use throughout their lives, whether or not they choose to go into science.
3, 2, 1, go.
So this is the blood sample that I got off of knife 1, and so I'm going to test it to see what kind of blood it is.
10th graders are actually learning how to use forensic science, and they're using that knowledge to make their own episode of CSI.
No clotting, again, that means it's probably type Q blood.
We've basically been filming every single step of the way, from gathering the evidence to labeling suspects, identifying the crime, and as you can see right now, we're just kind of solving who is who.
And it seems like he's hovering over the water.
The 9th grade students in our program are building video games with the Microsoft software Kodu that was specifically designed so that students could learn programming skills.
Well, the stars are worth 100 points and the hearts are worth 5. And then these fish enemies, they can kill you. And if you don't pay attention, you'll fall off the edge.
Many students return to camp every summer and look forward to the next adventure.
Every year we do something different, and so this year we are doing water sampling, and we've water sampling at the Puyallup River, Commencement Bay, and Thea Falls.
Remember, when we're going to put that in, we need to rinse it because we want to eliminate transfer of water that was inside of that before we collect our samples. So you guys going to set it? Awesome.
It's just amazing about what kind of things we found in the water and what kind of things are actually going into the water.
The Math Science Leadership Program really targets students who are underrepresented in the sciences. And part of that is because we know that we're not producing enough scientists and engineers in the U.S.
I've been in the program for 6 years, ever since the 6th grade, and I loved it. It's like super amazing. I've learned so many different new things about science and math, and it's made me want to go into a science career.
Our first hypothesis was that we thought that Theophos would have the most compounds in there.
And we need more scientists and a greater diversity of the kinds of people who are becoming scientists to not only meet the economic needs, but to meet some of the really large global challenges that we're facing.
Oh my gosh, it's working!
My favorite part of the program is seeing kids grow, seeing them get excited, and when we high five and say, "I love science."
Yay! It feels so good now.
Middle and high school students can apply for the Math Science Leadership Program starting every year in February. For more information, you'll find a link on our website, uwtv.org/UW360. And stay with us. We're heading to San Francisco as UW360 continues. Welcome back, everyone. Our next story involves a UW professor, a California Zen Center, and some very eager students. It's a tale of modern technology meeting ancient philosophy.
The life of a junior faculty member at a major university can be very challenging. There are time constraints, teaching obligations, and many things to manage, including stress.
I found it very helpful if I could just stop and collect my thoughts, watch what the mind was doing, and so that's what drew me to Buddhist practice and meditation.
Joe Tennis is an assistant professor of library and information science at the University of Washington. He was drawn to the San Francisco Zen Center as a place to practice Buddhism. During one of his visits to the Zen Center, Tennis mentioned his background in information organization to one of the teachers.
And immediately his eyes lit up. And he's like, oh, we have this problem. We have tons of documents and archival material.
For the last 3 summers, Tennis and a handful of graduate students have converged at the center to organize and catalog 50 years worth of material.
The first phase of our project was basically taking an inventory of everything that they had. So the cassette tapes, photos, documentary heritage, even some of the textiles and art objects that were there we listed so that they knew what they had.
Next, they prioritized what could be digitized. First on the list, old photos. 1,600 photos to be exact. Working in the field provided some valuable and some non-traditional opportunities for the students.
They would actually deal with real materials and the migration from print, photo, and audio cassette-based archive to a digital archive.
Students also had to commit to live the life of the temple during their 4 weeks at the center. This meant getting up at 5 a.m. and meditating for 40 minutes before beginning their archival work. The idea was to take the mindfulness from the meditation into their work as librarians and archivists.
There's this saying in Zen Buddhism of use both hands, right? Which means to do one thing at a time. And they've reflected how that influences the way they look at their work, at cataloging, at arranging, at acting with some intention. When students enroll in a Master's in Library and Information Science, they might think that they're going to go then work for a library, like at the University of Washington's libraries, for example. And that's great. But what they can also do with their degree is start their own library. And I think that's what we've started to do here at the San Francisco Zen Center, is show students that this archives project is a need within this not-for-profit, and there's a way in which they can bring their skills to bear and help that community.
Next summer, Joe Tennis and a new group of students will return to the monastery to tackle the next phase of their project, digitizing 6,000 cassette tapes. Meanwhile, closer to home, some other UW students explored another ancient practice, beekeeping, and they learned some powerful environmental lessons along the way.
The whole vegetation of the earth, or a large proportion of it, is dependent on bees. So suddenly bees disappeared, things would be pretty dismal pretty fast. We're all looking for new solutions. Many of these problems that we've acquired in the last few years are so new that full-on science doesn't have the answers for us yet. The only way we can really make any headway in dealing with those problems is by learning about them. Disappearing disease. It's a syndrome the bees get where the bees appear to, over a very short period of time, the whole colony gets very weak, the bees are dying, and then suddenly they just all disappear, literally. The fact that bees are having so many problems at a time when other aspects of our environment are suffering as well is kind of linked. You can't do beekeeping out of a handbook or a weekend class anymore. You really have to have experience, you have to work with experienced beekeepers. You know, if and when things improve for the bees, you know, it is going to be because of smart young people with really good ideas.
We are monitoring mites in the hive, so we count them on the sticky boards like this that is in the bottom, and then we also count using a sugar shaker method. The powdered sugar knocks the mites off of the bees, and then they eat the sugar once we put them back into the hive.
20 years ago, we were pouring pesticides into hives because we were scared to death of the mites. Now we're realizing that was kind of foolish because we're still suffering negative consequences from that, and in any case, the mites that were the target organisms have gotten resistant to those pesticides. They don't even work anymore for the most part.
We are using non-chemical mite treatments, Hopguard and Apolife, which have herbal extracts in them. And so by doing that, we're going to try and find some answers to what method might be the best way for treating mites.
The wax industry associated with honeybees is all one big amalgamated activity. So the wax that was contaminated with the pesticides eventually gets back into the bees. It's vitally important because the bees rear their young in this wax. I mean, ultimately it's what they live in. One of the projects that we're working on is trying to find ways to locally purify small batches of wax.
This is a solar wax melter. It uses the sun to melt wax out of honeycomb so that we can take that wax and process it and try to come up with ways to purify it.
Working with bees to try to help realize and solve their problems is kind of a window onto the human condition in general. Taking care of bees is basically taking care of ourselves.
To find out more about the bee program and the UW farm, just check out the link on our website. And stay with us for the latest on solar energy research as UW360 continues. Welcome back, everyone. Even here in the often cloudy Pacific Northwest, we still have plenty of sunshine to power all our tools and toys if we just had the technology to harness it. Fortunately, UW researchers are hard at work to make that happen.
In this solar cell laboratory on the University of Washington campus, graduate student Corey Boucherel works in what is called the glove box. It's an oxygen-free zone to prevent moisture and rust from contaminating her intricate experiments.
So what Corey is doing is she's weighing out precursors that we use to synthesize nanocrystals.
These nanocrystals are tiny combinations of copper, zinc, and tin. Natural elements that may lead to a revolutionary new way of weaning the world off of fossil fuels.
And once we make these nanocrystals, they will form an ink which we can spread on a substrate and convert into the solar cell.
In other words, solar cells that can be literally painted on an object. These cells will be made from natural molecules that are cheap, abundant, and efficient.
Ultimately, what we're developing is a science and technology and a set of chemistry and techniques where ultimately one would be able to take a tool, move it across a surface, and have a functioning, robust, working solar cell. We're a long ways away from that, but that will be an era where virtually every surface that has any sunlight on it is coated with this.
Professor Hillhouse and his colleagues work in the field of clean technology, using organic molecules to engineer renewable alternatives to fossil fuels. It's a branch of a relatively new area of study called molecular engineering and science.
Number one is design. So how do you design with molecules? How do you put molecules together in systems which do meaningful work? So you put systems of molecules together which are focused on a specific task or a job, in the same way you would say I would design a bridge to span the Tacoma Narrows.
More energy from the sun strikes the Earth's surface in 1 hour than the entire human race uses every 6 months. But current technology limits our access. it's too expensive and too inefficient for mass production. So the research underway in UW's solar cell labs is intended to solve some of these issues. Here in Professor Christine Luscombe's lab, her team experiments with strings of molecules called polymers in order to make inexpensive solar cells.
So one of the advantages that these polymers have is that you can make more lightweight and flexible devices, which you can't really do with existing technology. So you could think about having all your cell phones or all your laptops being covered with these plastics, which can then allow you to get electricity on the spot and be able to use your devices.
Over in another lab, the scientists research ways to use the sun to release and store hydrogen.
So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to use sunlight energy to split the bonds of water and form new bonds of hydrogen and oxygen, so making hydrogen gas and oxygen gas. And we can take that energy and we can use it similar to the way that we combust gasoline in our car.
We're all somehow concerned with energy conversion, in particular solar energy conversion. And you know, the fundamental challenge of getting off of fossil fuel dependence and shifting over to the single most abundant source of energy available, which is sunlight. And so this is a big challenge.
Professor Gamelin stresses that even though they are 5, 10, or 15 years away from solutions to some of these energy issues, the students and their professors are more than ready for the challenge.
It's amazing how many students really want to pitch in and try to solve what they view as problems for their generation and future generations. And so, you know, I think for them this is a golden opportunity.
Up next, a life-saving mission overseas as UW physicians deliver emergency training to help save women from dying during childbirth. UW 360 continues. Welcome back, everyone. At almost any moment, somewhere in the world, a woman is having a baby. And where she lives could mean the difference between life and death. Now a team of UW doctors and researchers is traveling around the world to help save lives.
It is August in the Central American country of Guatemala. UW physician Dilys Walker is leading a group into a tropical region called the Gateway to the ancient Mayan Empire. But this is no tourist trip. Dr. Walker and her team traveled nearly 24 hours to get to this isolated town.
Is often known as sort of the corridor of death, sort of in Guatemala where the majority of the maternal mortality is occurring and neonatal mortality, primarily indigenous areas, sort of in the 4 northern districts of Guatemala.
In these villages, a hospital is no more than a plain, small building on a simple street.
Guatemala in these areas have a maternal mortality rate of about 250 per 100,000 births, compared to somewhere like here in the US where you get about 15 per 100,000 live births.
The American team is called Pronto. It's a Spanish acronym describing emergency obstetric and neonatal training. And that's why they have come to this rural corner of the world, to train Guatemalan doctors how to deal with emergency room deliveries. Dr. Walker developed this program and created the training aids at her kitchen table.
You know, when I trained, we trained on people. Now, students, residents train in simulation centers, which are multi-million-dollar centers that have all sorts of very high-tech machines to do the simulations with. Now, that is out of the reach to low-resource settings, so we had to develop our own low-tech simulator in order to do this, which we did, which we call Pardo Pants.
The idea is the key to helping the team save lives. The Pronto Pardo Pants are worn by a woman who is simulating childbirth. The team scripts a delivery scenario, and the doctors follow along, not knowing what could happen next. And the results are dramatic.
the participants have to act to what they see. So if the woman starts bleeding, then they will have to ask for a kind of medication to help contract the uterus. They'll have to go get that medication, open it up. We have an injection pad on the patient actress. They'll actually have to give the injection. If they're going to worry about the patient falling into shock, they have to take the blood pressure, and then we will give them the results, and they will have to respond in a very sort of what we like to say high fidelity manner as to what's going on. And when you see participants doing this, it's not like they're acting it out and laughing and joking. They feel like they're in the scenario, and they experience that sense of panic when things are going bad and you're not quite sure how it's going to turn out.
It is real training in a real setting that is benefiting doctors not only in Guatemala, but also in Mexico, where Pronto got its start. Now the Pronto team is expanding its program again. They are reaching into Africa and villages in Kenya. Imi Yatis is a nurse midwife from the University of Nairobi who recently completed a fellowship program at UW Medicine. She has been in the delivery room where mothers and babies did not survive.
So people are eager to learn more. Then by doing that, they're able to impact more in the quality of care that is offered to the communities. Preventing some of these causes of maternal mortality is very possible because most of these deaths are preventable.
And that's the goal of this unique program.
I know it's kind of lofty saying that I think we actually save lives, but I also think we offer an experience to providers that gives them practice doing something that you don't usually get practice doing. Emergencies don't happen all the time. And here in the US, we practice obstetric emergencies, and what I'm trying to do is bring that practice, that relevant practice, to providers where it is needed most.
Dr. Walker says someday there could be Pronto offices all over the world. But for now, it's just one team right here at the University of Washington. And that's it for this edition of UW360. You can catch this episode again on our website, uwtv.org/UW360, where you'll also find links to more information on everything we've covered today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with all new stories from the University of Washington.
Wardrobe for Carolyn Douglas is provided by C'est La Vie, located in downtown Edmonds and in Renton at The Landing.